Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe with Mary Kay Cabot here, recording this on, what day is it? Tuesday. Recording this on Tuesday night. It's about 7:40. News has been coming in fast all day, so who knows what's going to happen between when we record this, when you actually listen to this. But the good news, Mary Kay, is the biggest news of the day has happened, at least to this point, and that is the Ravens firing John Harbaugh. So we're going to get to some HMK questions probably a little bit later, but we can't start this pod any other way. John Harbaugh is available. Now, would he be interested in the Browns? I don't know, but obviously Browns fans, and I'm sure the Browns organization would be very interested in John Harbaugh. What are your thoughts here? Like, to what lengths should the Browns go to try to hire John Harbaugh?
Well, first of all, before we get started, I just need to point out, if anybody is watching this on a video, or if we have it, if it goes to YouTube or whatever the case may be, I still have my Christmas tree up in the background, right? And when you're an NFL beat writer and you go into a coaching search and then you go into a quarterback search, the tree sometimes doesn't come down until April.
It's a coaching search tree.
It's a coaching search.
It's a coaching search tree.
Now, the problem with this coaching search tree is that it is real. And at some point, it could turn into the burning bush behind me because it's just going to.
Maybe that's appropriate for a Browns coaching search. Let's see where this thing goes.
So I apologize for that. But yes, let's get to John Harbaugh, because I tweeted over the weekend when I first heard that he could get fired, that the Browns would probably be all over that. And that is because I had heard some time ago that the Browns really, in their, short list of someday what ifs, really like him a lot. And what's not to like, right? He's won 185 games. He's won a Super Bowl. He's won something like 6 AFC North titles. And he's got the Browns number, that's for sure. 27-8 against the Browns, 12-5 in Cleveland. And also, he's got Cleveland roots. His mother was actually born in and raised in Cleveland. She graduated from Shaw High. Him and his brother Jim, his famous brother Jim, the Chargers head coach, were Browns fans and Indians fans growing up. They were the Indians back then, of course, Guardians now, but they were big, huge Cleveland sports fans, and they've got a lot of their heart right here in Cleveland and still some family members. So he's got roots here. He's got ties here. I'm sure he's got lots of family members that would love for him to take this job. Now, will he get an interview with the Cleveland Browns? That remains to be seen, because it seems like the Giants are hot on his heels. And if he already knew that the Giants would be hot on his heels, there could be some back channel things going on here where everyone kind of knows he's going to get that job. And if he's going to get that job, then the Browns are not going to interview him, obviously. So this might not go anywhere at all. But if it became a situation where he wanted to start the interview process and get around a little bit, I certainly think that they would interview him, or at least think about interviewing him. And we both saw the report earlier from Adam Schefter saying that in the first 45 minutes, 7 teams called his agent about John Harbaugh. Well, there are only 7 teams with vacancies right now, and one of them is the Baltimore Ravens. So there's a good chance that the Browns at least called. Doesn't mean he's going to interview here. And it seems like he likes Jackson Dart, and he might be pretty high on that Giants job. But it's something to kick around for all the obvious reasons.
So, when I think about it, like, what would the Browns have to sell him, right? Well, we know that all those Cleveland ties, that's what you just mentioned. They could maybe sell him on this defense. I mean, he said some great things about this defense during the season. He was very complimentary of the Browns multiple times during the season when they played this team. So they obviously have that. And the big thing is, we know this, Jimmy Haslam is not afraid to spend money. So they could have John Harbaugh come in and he could offer him a John Gruden style contract, like what John Gruden signed with the Ravens, which I think that was like 10 years, $100 million. It was a huge number. So Jimmy could offer that to John Harbaugh. I think the question is, what would happen if John Harbaugh came in here and kind of demanded maybe more control than the Browns are willing to offer anybody else? Do you think the Haslams would step in and essentially upset the apple cart here and say, I know there's a process in place. I know we're trying to do this a certain way, but this is what John Harbaugh wants, and we're going to give him anything he wants, even if that includes making changes to the front office.
Well, once again, it depends. I mean, I do think that if you were trying to land a John Harbaugh and you thought you had a realistic shot at him, I think that you would give him a lot of things that he would want. Now, obviously, you already have your general manager in place, but you might have to, shift some things around a little bit. You might have to add some people that he would want to bring in. Not exactly sure how all that would go, but I don't think it would be easy to, just land him. He's the hottest candidate on the market. And if the Giants don't have something sort of already set in stone, then I think there will be a bidding war. There will be plenty of teams that will be doing whatever they can to get their hands on this amazing head coach who just knows how to win year after year after year. The other thing, of course, is the quarterback situation. As I mentioned before, he seems to really like Jackson Dart, and any NFL head coach knows the golden rule is you have to have a quarterback. You have to have a quarterback. So he would have to look at the Cleveland situation and see if he either likes Shedeur Sanders enough, or, Deshaun Watson is not a long-term answer. He's only under contract through next season, but, could he win with him next year until they get to what they want? And then they also have the number 6 pick in the draft and the number 28 pick right now. And could they do something with those 2 picks to get what they want out of the draft? Do they look ahead to 2027 and see Arch Manning there? So there are all kinds of ways to look at this. But once again, it's all a moot point if he already has a backdoor deal with the Giants.
Yeah, that's all. That's kind of that's the thing here. Like, will the Browns even get this opportunity? But the reality is, this is one of those situations where, I mean, first of all, this was a pretty boring head coaching list. I mean, the Browns fired the guy who was basically the top candidate, who was the top candidate in a lot of places before John Harbaugh got fired. So, I mean, it instantly becomes like John Harbaugh and everybody else. And I just think if you're the Browns and you have a chance, or even if maybe you don't have a chance, I'm a fan of, like, just, you've got to make him say no. You've got to present him with some kind of offer, whether it's money, whether it's control, whether it's a combination of all of those things. I just think he's one of those rare candidates that you have to put it in front of him and make him say no. Let him. I mean, he kind of gets to dictate some of the terms of what he wants. And I'd be okay with that if it meant that he was going to coach this team, because that's the kind of, and I know there were things in Baltimore. He didn't have the playoff success they expected. It certainly wasn't always perfect, but it would just take this franchise to another level if they hired a culture changer and just a guy who would be the face of your organization like that.
Yeah, it really would. I think it would be amazing. I think he'd be just an excellent candidate. He'd be a great head coach here. I think he'd be a tremendous, tremendous fit. Once again, he's got those Cleveland roots. He's an Ohio native himself. He's from Toledo. He just has just sort of an Ohio vibe, basically. And of course, we know all about his coaching prowess. We've seen it twice a year since 2008, right? We know all about him. We know what his defenses are all about. We know what, his quarterbacks are all about. Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson. The amazing thing is, in all of those years of his, he really only had 2 quarterbacks, right? I mean, he's really only had 2 starting quarterbacks since 2008 for the most part in Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. That's amazing. I mean, the Browns go through 2 quarterbacks a game sometimes, right? I mean, they've been through, Kevin Stefanski started 13 quarterbacks just over the last 3 seasons. It took him, 5 in 2023 and to get to the postseason. Well, it took him 4 and then they started a 5th. I mean, these guys have had quarterback stability. So he would want that. He would want to know what the quarterback landscape is. And I think it's good that Andrew Berry, made it very clear in his press conference yesterday that they are leaving that quarterback situation open for the head coach to have a say in it. They're not locking themselves into anything. They haven't committed to Shedeur Sanders, and the new head coach will have a say in the quarterback, and that's so vitally important.
Well, and I think to your point with the quarterbacks too, and this is certainly a plus for him, is so he has Joe Flacco for all those years, and then he pivots to a completely different quarterback. in Lamar Jackson, who needed to develop a little bit, but they knew what they had in him. So then he goes out and hires Greg Roman, sort of changes that offense and builds it around this running quarterback. Then when Lamar Jackson gets to a point where obviously the passing catches up to the running, he moves on from Greg Roman, hires Todd Monken to bring in a more open system. And of course, Todd Monken is a guy that the Browns requested to talk to today, former Browns OC, as well as had a lot of college success. But brings in Todd Monken to sort of reconfigure that offense and open it up a little more now that Lamar, is able to run that offense a little more at the pro level. I just think that ability to hire people, in Seattle right now, their head coach, he came up, Harbaugh brought him in to run his defense, a few years ago. So he just knows how to put the right people in place for the most part. And he just sort of knows when we talk about CEO coaches, that's what he is. I mean, he is the ultimate CEO coach. And by the way, the Browns special teams would make a huge leap if John Harbaugh were this team's head coach.
Yes, absolutely 100%. We know that he came up through the special teams ranks. He worked under Andy Reid. So he's got a lot of great influences in his background. And he does have a nice coaching tree. And he also comes from an organization steeped in success. You've got Ozzie Newsome, who he worked with all of those years. And, they just know how to do things right. And they have consistently won. And he had, I think, 13 winning seasons. And yeah, I think he had 13 winning seasons. I mean, that says a lot right there. So there's continuity, there's winning, there's professionalism. And he is a leader of men. We have seen that over and over and over again. And that's what the Browns are looking for. They're looking for that leader. And I thought they had that in Kevin. I still think that they had that in Kevin. But again, it was just time for them they felt it was time to move on from that, but they are still looking for someone who has those qualities, who can be the face and the voice of the franchise, command the locker room, and do all of those kinds of things. And we know that John Harbaugh can do that. So this is something to watch over the next few days, because Kevin Stefanski, lo and behold, is going to New York tomorrow to interview with the Giants. So that'll be a little bit awkward, because until John Harbaugh hit the market, Kevin Stefanski was probably the top candidate on the market. And, he already has interviews lined up with the Giants and then the Titans on Saturday. And now we'll have to see how this is all going to go. I mean, he's going to have to get in there and really sell himself to the New York Giants if he wants that job. And I remember being at the Senior Bowl with Kevin Stefanski, and Bubba Ventrone was there coaching, and they really liked Jackson Dart. They really liked him a lot. And I don't know, they obviously didn't like him well enough to draft him in the first round, but they liked him. And I think that Kevin would enjoy coaching him, and I thought he really showed some things this year. So we'll have to see how that's going to go for him, but it will all have a ripple effect, what happens up there in New York.
Okay, so let's kind of keep going down this Kevin Stefanski road, and let's get to some of our Hey MK questions from our Football Insider subscribers. This comes from Doward Williamson in Sacramento, California. Hey, Mary Kay, this has to do with the Giants job. Hey, Mary Kay, do you think Kevin is relieved to be let go? And if he does get hired by the Giants, how well will he fare with the aggressive New York media?
Well, I think we broke him in pretty well.
I think so too. Well, can I just say this? When I read that question, I had two thoughts. One, I think the New York media might be a little overrated, but that's another discussion. But two, he had to deal with some stuff while he was here in Cleveland, including this last year. So, and he never broke over 6 years with us and all the stuff that was going on. So I think he'll be fine.
Right. And it is different here than it is in New York or Philadelphia in terms of just the media coverage and the tone of the coverage and things like that. I do think that this is a softer market in that regard. But it's also I always say this about it. It's a large, small market. I mean, we have a media room filled with reporters covering the Browns every single day. And it's not like that in every single city. So he did have a lot coming at him. He had large crowds around him all the time. And, we've heard other coaches say it's not like that in a lot of places. So I think we did do a pretty good job of kind of greasing the skids a little bit for him to be involved with the New York media. But then the other thing about Kevin Stefanski is that he grew up in Philadelphia. And I would say that the Philly media is probably even tougher than the New York media. And he's just used to that. I mean, he was a fan of sports talk radio and all those Philly sports writers. And so he's used to that sort of thing. He was probably expecting more from us than we threw at him. And maybe we should have pushed the envelope a little bit more at times. But I think he'll be ready for for what New York has to offer in every single way. And as you have mentioned before, he never broke. He's unflappable. Kevin Stefanski is unflappable. You would think at some point after the game or in the days leading up to the game that we could have gotten him to crack the tiniest bit on the fact that he was about to lose his job that he has loved for 6 years here, and we couldn't. And then I think the other part about that question was, is he somewhat relieved that he is actually having a chance to go to a place like the New York Giants and kind of leave this situation and go do something else and have a change of scenery? And I think there is probably some of that going on. I think sometimes you do get to the point where a change of scenery is going to do everyone good. And it's probably that way for Kevin.
Yeah, and I think especially given when, you kind of start to get that sense that it's probably going to be over anyway, there probably is a relief once it actually happens. I think probably overall, I mean, I think he really loved being in Cleveland. He sort of fit the vibe of Cleveland. Of course, this was a guy that was in Minnesota forever. So I think he fit really well here. And I think this would have been a place that if he could have stuck around for as long as John Harbaugh was in Baltimore, I think it would have been great. I think he would have loved it. But I think to that point, when you're hearing about your job over and over again, and you start to get the sense that like you're probably going to get fired, there probably is some level of relief of like, okay, maybe I'm not glad it's over, but I am kind of glad it's over.
Well, in addition to that, think about the fact that he's got 3 school-age kids.
Yeah.
He's got one son at St. Ignatius. He's got another son that is in the 8th grade, and then he's got a daughter that is like maybe in the 4th or 5th grade, something like that. And these kids have to hear about this stuff all the time. I mean, kids are not kind when it comes to this sort of thing. And I'm sure it's been hard on the family, and they've probably had to block a lot of things out. And, that just can't be easy because this year, as we all know, it was a very, very difficult year from a media standpoint or a coaching standpoint. Anybody who was associated in any way, shape, or form with Shedeur Sanders, you were going to hear about things. You were going to hear about things, and certainly Kevin did. And a lot of it was unwarranted. A lot of it was unfair. I tried the best I could, and I'm sure you did too, to kind of squash the narrative that he was trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders. That was ridiculous. He wasn't trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders. He did a lot of things to try to get Shedeur Sanders ready to play, including spending tons of time one-on-one in his office with Shedeur, and that's unusual. You don't do that with a quarterback usually. I mean, I've never heard of that before, where you're spending all kinds of one-on-one time in your office with this quarterback to help him get ready to play. But he did that, and I think that's part of the reason why you saw Shedeur Sanders be able to go out there and function even when he got no first team reps until the first week that he was about to start. And you can argue, well, why did that happen? And I never agreed with that. That should not have happened. He should have gotten first team reps before that. Even if you had to borrow some from Dillon Gabriel, whatever you had to do, there needed to be first team reps for Shedeur before he was getting ready to go in and start a football game. I will give everyone that. There's no way that should have happened like that. But I just don't think that they really thought it was going to get to the point where he was going to be starting 7 games for this football team this year. I just don't think that was the plan heading in. And then everything changed, and here they were.
Yeah, I think about that, what you were just saying about, having a son who is high school age. I mean, that kid's probably not staying off social media. Like, I'm sure he's trying to avoid a lot of that stuff, a lot of the toxic stuff about his dad, but like probably on social media, probably seeing a lot of it, probably seeing stuff on ESPN and all, like the hot take industry just run with these Shedeur Sanders narratives. So again, that's that's probably a little bit where where some of that relief could come from. Now, I want to get to this question about Stefanski too, and this comes from John in Fort Pierce. Hey, Mary Kay, do you think the Stefanski firing will fall in line with the Baker Mayfield trade regret? We all know he's a quality quarterback the Browns gave up on and could have won with. Do you think Stefanski will coach in a Super Bowl before the Browns play in one?
Well, there's a good chance of that, depending on where he lands, of course. It all depends on who his quarterback is. And I say it over and over and over again. Any head coach in the NFL, in my opinion, is really, for the most part, only going to be as good as his starting quarterback is going to be, right? I mean, maybe Bill Belichick wouldn't have been the greatest coach of all time without Tom Brady. Maybe Andy Reid wouldn't be what he is without Patrick Mahomes, although he's been successful with other quarterbacks, of course. But
to that point, the Chiefs understood that like Alex Smith wasn't good enough to get them where they wanted to go. Like for as great as Andy Reid was, like even they understood, got to figure out a way to get better.
Right. And it's got to be about the quarterback. So if Kevin Stefanski can be paired with a really good quarterback, then 100% he can take a team to the Super Bowl. There's no question about that. I mean, we watched him in 2020 almost beat the Chiefs, right? I mean, they almost went to the AFC Championship game here. So he can 100% take a team to the Super Bowl if he has a quarterback that he feels good about and can win with. And so, yes, I do think that there could be some regret on that part, but the Browns have to get it right themselves. They've got to get it right. They've got to find their magical combination of the coach and the quarterback. And it's incumbent upon Andrew Berry this offseason. That's what he's got to do. He's got to find those two guys, and he's got to find that magical pairing. And again, if it's not the head coach having that camaraderie and that simpatico with your quarterback, then it's got to be your offensive coordinator, play caller.
Yeah, I mean, that's really like the Baker Mayfield thing. And obviously there's a lot of levels to that, right? I mean, Tampa's not in the playoffs this year, right? Like how is Baker a Super Bowl quarterback? I don't know. But, and I don't know if Kevin is ever going to get to a Super Bowl. We know he can get a team to the playoffs. And then when you get to the playoffs, who knows? So, I mean, John Harbaugh had really talented Ravens teams that he couldn't get to the Super Bowl in recent years. So it's really hard to do that. But I think to your point, it's like if the Browns get their coaching hire right, it doesn't matter if Kevin Stefanski is good elsewhere because they can be good too. Just like if Deshaun Watson would have come here and been good, then it wouldn't have mattered that they gave up on Baker Mayfield. So it's really kind of all about the Browns and what they can do that would cancel out whatever success Kevin Stefanski has elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely. And it's such a pivotal time right now. I mean, it really is, it's really mind-blowing to even think about how crucial and important this hire is and this moment is in Cleveland Browns history, because they've got this amazing defense and they've got some really nice pieces on the other side of the ball that are, just young guys, Harold Bannon, Quinshawn. We'll see what happens with Shedeur Sanders. But now they need the coach to pull it all together and get this thing going the way they need it to go. And they've got a defensive coordinator that they really, really like a lot, obviously, in Jim Schwartz. And you just have to make sure if you can, whatever you do, are you going to be upsetting that side of the ball? Or are you going to be able to keep him? There are so many things going on right now that will change the course of history for the Cleveland Browns. It's a very pivotal year.
Okay. Oh, got something in my throat. I got all choked up thinking about John Harbaugh. We had a couple people bring up this name, Deshaun Watson. So Mavro and Cebus and Rick LaPaglia in Clifton Springs, New York, who also always sends us pictures of like his Browns man cave and stuff like that too. So shout out to Rick for those. But Mavro and Cebus, we're going to use his question here. He says, "Hey, Mary Kay, do you see a better chance of Deshaun Watson starting the season as QB1 with a new head coach in this building?" And Andrew Berry confirmed me. You'd been reporting it all season. Andrew Berry just came out and said it on Monday. Deshaun Watson is going to be on this roster in 2026, barring some wild development. And I mean, the thing is, if Deshaun Watson is on this roster and he's healthy, Mary Kay, like, I don't know if he'll be QB1, but he's going to have a chance, right? Like, he's going to have some opportunity to be in the mix in that quarterback room somehow.
Yes, he will be in the room. And I think it's just going to be determined by, is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? And if Shedeur is going to be the quarterback next season, it seems to me that they would just keep going with him. I don't think they would sit him down on the bench for a while and then let Deshaun go out there and play. That doesn't seem like it would make sense. I think that they would start Shedeur and let him try to build on what he did this year, and then give him an upgraded supporting cast. And I think they believe that if he has a much better offensive line and some new receivers and Quinshon's back, that suddenly Shedeur is going to look a whole lot better than he looked this year. And we'll have to see if that's the case. I mean, for the Browns' sake, it would be great if it worked out like that, because they would save themselves a boatload of money. But I looked up something today when I was writing something about Shedeur, and I want to see what you think about this, Dan. It occurred to me that, he may not have, we knew that he didn't face the most formidable defenses in the NFL this season. So I wanted to look and see what that actually was. And I'm sorry, I'm making noises with my notebook right now. See if I can find what I wrote down. Okay, here it is. In 5 of Shedeur's 7 starts this season, he faced pass defenses that were 22nd, 23rd, 25th, 26th, and 29th. In addition to that, he did not have to face Nick Bosa and Fred Warner when they faced the 49ers because of injuries. He did not have to face TJ Watt when they faced the Steelers the second time around because of an injury. And he did not have to face Trey Hendrickson when they played the Bengals in the season finale. So even though he's going to have a better supporting cast, he's probably going to have some better defenses that he's going to be facing next season than he had to face in his final 7 games this year.
Well, yeah. And I think, too, on top of that, it's not like he, was lighting it up. Obviously, he had a big game against Tennessee, but, he did not play well on Sunday. Now, the drive at the end kind of masks that a little. You love to see that, the drive at the end to set up the game-winning field goal, but overall, he didn't play well on Sunday against the Bengals. And there's a lot of charts out there. There's a lot of stats out there that are saying that Shedeur Sanders just wasn't very good when he was the starter. Now, there's also, that throw that Sal Cannella dropped. Like, that was a great throw. So there are these moments where you see these great throws and these great plays, and it's like, man, can you harness that somehow? Can you make that more consistent? But yeah, to your point, it's just, it's different when you have to face tougher, more healthier defenses. And also, it'll be different if you're going into the season as QB1 and everything is geared. I mean, we've seen him get to go against some teams that are game planning for him, but when everything is geared towards stopping you week after week after week, it gets really hard.
Yeah, and I think that it seemed to me, and I still have to go back and watch this game over again because
I haven't watched it either.
You haven't either. I haven't had time to do that yet. We got a little busy yesterday, and it still hasn't stopped. But it seemed to me that that they were not about to let Shedeur Sanders just go running all over them. And this was not a good defense that he was having a hard time running against. So I think we're going to have to see how the mobility holds up over time. Now that defensive coordinators know that he's going to be elusive and slippery and he's going to try to run a little bit, we're going to have to see how that's going to hold up when you start to game plan for that. Because if you take that away from him, that could be a huge factor. He'll have to pivot and adjust. And I thought he did a great job this season of pivoting and adjusting and learning things on the fly and correcting his mistakes the next week. But once teams get that film on you and they dig in there, like Bill Musgrave, the quarterback's coach, said, they find out things about you that you don't even know about yourself. And once that starts to happen, that's how sometimes you see a sophomore slump for a quarterback, because these brilliant defensive coordinators they'll get in there and they'll dig in there and they'll figure you out and they'll find out what they can do to attack your weaknesses, and they'll get you if they can. So those are some things that he's going to have to overcome. But I will say this, he did not get much help from his supporting cast. He got plenty of help from Harold Fannin. Jr., not a whole bunch of help elsewhere. Now, Isaiah Bond made some passes, made some nice catches. and those two connected deep a few times. But for the most part, he and Jerry Jeudy struggled. They started to heat it up again a little bit towards the end of the season, but they struggled a lot together. He didn't have much going with Cedric Tillman. He had a horrible offensive line. I mean, just a horrible offensive line. Then when you take Harold Fannin out of the mix in that finale against the Bengals, that's going to make it really tough for you to get anything done. It's going to make it really, really tough. And I think that it will be interesting to see what he can do with a much, much upgraded and bolstered supporting cast.
So I do want to talk a little more about the Deshaun thing too, because the other part of this that I've thought about over the last like 24 hours or so is this idea of, like, if he's going to be on the roster and he's going to have, now this number they'll drop this number somehow, but right now his cap hit is $80 million. So whatever, even if they drop that to like whatever, it's 40 something. If he's going to be on the roster and he's going to be eating up that much of your cap, and he's going to be at that point, once we get to the season, 21 months removed from the repair of his Achilles, right? Like this past season, it was a recovery season for him. They were able to get him out on the practice field for 3 weeks and then kind of put him to the side again. But when we get to next year, if he's eating up that much cap, you might as well find some use for him besides just being in the meeting rooms and helping these young quarterbacks. Now, that doesn't mean he has to start if they really want to keep going with Shedeur, if they draft someone that they really like or whatever it is. But I just feel like next year is different with him, because if he's going to be around and making that much money, you should at least try and get a little bang for your buck, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, but will they? I don't know, because some of it is going to depend on what the new head coach wants. And it also is going to depend on how powerful of a head coach you hire. If you hire a John Harbaugh, he is certainly going to have every bit of say in who his quarterback is going to be. He's not just going to have input, he's going to make that decision 100%. If you hire a young, up-and-coming offensive guy, maybe you say to him, look, we really think that Shedeur Sanders can be the guy. Or we would really like Deshaun Watson to start the first 3 games of the season while we get a rookie ready, right? So I think a lot of it is going to depend on who the head coach is and how powerful that head coach is going to be. But in the event that they end up with a young, like a rookie quarterback, say they draft someone, they trade up and they draft someone at number 4 or something like that, or 3, whatever. I do think that there is a world in which Deshaun can be their bridge quarterback. Now, you'd be taking a risk. Nobody knows what he's going to look like in the heat of the moment out there on the football field after being out of it for so long. But the Browns have liked what they've seen inside the field house, and they liked what they saw in those 3 weeks of practice. They felt he was the most talented quarterback on the football field, and it's my understanding that he will be given a chance to compete, maybe not in training camp, but leading up to it in the offseason, to show what he's got and to prove to these guys that he deserves to start some football games. I don't know if it will actually come to that, but that's sort of the vibe right now.
Well, that'll make for an interesting spring, at least. There's probably a bigger discussion to be had about, like, and obviously this is not what they think, but to my point about, if you're going to have that on the books, if you're going to have him there making that much money, or at least counting that much against the cap, you need to do something with it. You can't just let it sit there. And I don't know, maybe he's just the most expensive backup quarterback in NFL history, but it does beg the question of, like, at some point, should they consider just cutting, just eating as much money as they have to, almost like the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, just saying, you know what, we can't, it's just too much. Like, we're just going to get him off the roster. It's too much of a distraction. It's too much of this guy just hanging in the wings, waiting in the wings. Let's just get him out of here and eat that dead money and move on with it.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. And I'm sure that's, something that at some point they could possibly consider. But another way to look at it is Bill Musgrave said a few times this season that he doesn't know where they would have been without Deshaun Watson. He's really good at helping these young guys assimilate the game plans and figure out how to run this offense and to understand what defenses are doing to them and whatnot. So if they do bring in a new rookie quarterback, or even if they're still going with Shedeur Sanders for next year, he can play that role. And it's a pretty important role from everything that that I've heard over the years, you really do need a veteran mentor in the room. And Deshaun has been a really good football mentor to these guys, a really good football mentor. And they have appreciated that contribution. So they've gotten something out of it. And I guess you'd have to pay a coach. I don't know how much you'd have to pay an assistant coach, but maybe you can look at it that way, that you can take maybe $400,000 off that 80 million and think that
Yeah, right.
you for a quasi assistant coach. But no, I mean, if you're going to have him around, and then look what happened in Atlanta this year. They needed Kirk Cousins to start because of injury. So you just never really know. I think they'll probably keep him around as a mentor and as a possible bridge in the early going, or as an insurance policy against injury.
Okay, I think we covered everything. Harbaugh, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders. Oh, you got something else?
I got something else. I think just very briefly, we should mention the two guys that they have requested head coaching interviews with. And we may have mentioned Todd Monken already. I think we did. And then they have also requested an interview with the defensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, Aiden Durd, and he is from England. He was born and raised in England. So this would be an unorthodox hire, but he's doing a great job. We know how good that Seahawks defense is. It's dominant. I love a good defense. I love it when I watch a football game and there's great defense being played. And that's what's going on with the Seahawks. They're a great defense, like the Cleveland Browns defense. There needs to be more of those in the NFL. I don't know why people don't spend more time investing on the defensive side of the ball. But anyways, Aiden Durd, he comes with great credentials, and he's a very, very interesting guy. And they're bringing him in. And I think it goes to show that they are being open-minded about their coaching search. They're going to pull from all different kinds of places and backgrounds and whatnot. So he's an interesting one. And I'm sure Andrew sees something in Aiden Durd that he really, really likes. And they've got to have that, that working relationship, the coach and the GM. They've got to work in concert all day long, every single day. And so it's got to be somebody that he feels really comfortable with.
Yeah, these early requests are always interesting. And sometimes you almost wonder, like, are they kind of doing some legwork for, if it's not the head coach job, could it be a coordinator job or something like that too? So
Absolutely.
yeah, you could do a lot worse than picking from, the Mike McDonald. Again, kind of that Harbaugh. There's some background with Harbaugh there. You could do a lot worse picking from that tree if you're looking for somebody on the defensive side of the ball, for sure. Okay, those questions at the Hey Mary Kay portion, at least, be the after John Harbaugh part. Those questions came from our Football Insider subscribers, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Mary Kay mentioned, if you want to watch it, if you want to see that coaching search tree in the background, go to our YouTube channel. It's Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. And also find us on Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk, Twitter, Orange Brown Talk. And and get subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave us reviews. We love to see that stuff. Mary Kay, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great.